Call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Kelvin Hills Board of Commissioners. Thank you all for being here. Hopefully BJ will join us shortly. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Each meeting we also start with a moment of silence, and as you might expect, there's lots to think about every week, but more today and more tragedy in the news and all around us. So be thinking of those folks who are hurting today. Take a moment. Thank you so much. We have an agenda before you.
Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Agenda carries. First item on our agenda, of course, is public comment. We do 2 public comment periods each meeting, here at the beginning and at the end. If you'd like to, I don't think anybody has signed up. If anyone in the audience would like to come speak, just identify yourself, where you live, and your name, and you've got 3 minutes or 5 minutes for a group. So I can see no one is rushing to the podium. I will assume you're waiting for the last one. All right. So response to public comment is now unnecessary. We will go right into our introductions and presentations. We have Dare County Tourism Board, the Outer Banks Visitors Bureau with us to tell us about the event center. I'm so excited to hear.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Gray. Great to see you again. Mr. Whitman, thank you for having us. And of course, our Assistant Treasurer at the Tourism Board, Ms. Ivy, is doing a great job representing you. I'm Tim Cafferty. I'm the Chairman of the Dare County Tourism Board. I am the 31st Chairman. So the organization has been around a while. See the anniversary coming up soon, but we've been working hard on a facility, site, as it were, over the last decade or so. And this is somewhat of a stewardship report that Lee and I have gone around and talked to various groups and towns and so on to let you know what's going on. And it's been 6 years since we've been here, so thanks for letting us come back and update you on the Soundside event site today and what may one day be the Soundside event center. So we're in the midst of permitting and building a sound front walkway, which I think is going to be excellent. It's going to be reminiscent of the duck walkway, so you'll see some activity there on the site in the very near future. What we're going to cover today, there it is, in the corner. What we're going to cover today is where we are hopefully headed with this event center. It's been a very inclusive process. From the start, we got together an advisory committee to work with the Tourism Board to get varying opinions about what should be there. You know, we got the original property and have been using that for years and have garnered additional property, and we've been through all machinations. We went to the Dare County Commissioners with our plan, and they thankfully gave us full support. We've been to the Chamber of Commerce. They also accepted us with open arms and said, you're doing a great job, attaboy, just let us know how we can help. And now we're going around to the towns to let you know what's going on here as well. And we also have the opportunity to visit with federal public and civic groups to ensure that this is an inclusive process. And by the way, I know about the 3 B's, Mr. Mayor, and that's when you're speaking. Be brief, be sincere, be seated. And so I won't be here too long. And I have my cohort, the Executive Director, Lee Nettles, with me to go through some visuals. I'm doing the boring stuff. And so we're going to address the next issues that come up as well. The events at the site, as we well know, Mr. Gray just had one that drew a lot of people out of market here. And that is the mission of the Tourism Board, to draw less than in-season visitors to the Outer Banks. And we think that this site is going to help us do that in spades. But we do have a lack of a large indoor facility. It's vulnerable to the weather, as we well know. We've had to cancel events in the past, and if you put up tents and so on, the infrastructure just doesn't allow it. I'm also think this past weekend, some of us were at the Family Rec Park to witness the pickleball tournament that took place there, and the wind played havoc with that. I can tell you with the women's doubles, at least that I was watching. And so we may have a solution for those folks as well as we go forward. We think that an indoor center has a lower risk for year-round events. We can plan on a schedule and schedule the plan. We can have other things other than sporting events, which our executive director will talk to you about some of the uses of the facility, but we can foresee things like galas, speakers coming in that would help promote professionalism in the area, sporting events, of course, indoor concerts. We can open up part of it, make an indoor-outdoor concert. And one of the things I'm really excited about, you'll see in the plan that Mr. Nettles will share with you, is that we have cordoned off an area that we see as a potential partnership with the Dare County schools as well as COA to maybe do some culinary training right there on site. And annually, the indoor event center and the event lawn are going to generate a lot of support, not only physically, but financially. We look to maybe bring as much as $25 million in new spending to Dare County with the facility, and that's potential of additional 14,000 new room nights. That would bring us a good amount of tax revenue, as you can see on the screen. It will also create jobs. We project that we will see 191 new jobs at or around this facility, including 9 full-time year-round people at the event center. So that's the boring stuff. Now we get to see the artist's rendering here by a local artist, Mr. Nettles, if you take them through what this building might look like. Great.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Board of Commissioners. Tim shared the whys, the why we believe the event center would be beneficial for year-round tourism and beneficial for the community. I'm going to take you through the what and the where of the event center. And I just have to point out, Mr. Mayor, you've been involved in this process going back a number of years as well. So hopefully you'll see where we're heading and it'll harken back to those days. What you see before you as a rough layout is by no means a finished design, but it helps to bring the concept to life. Overall, the building is 48,275 square feet. And just for a couple of points of reference, that's less than half of the size of the old Kmart, which was around 110,000 square feet. It's much closer to the size of the Publix grocery store, which is just about 46,000 square feet. The main portion is that orange rectangle. That's about 26,000 square feet. That's an event hall. The gray bar that's at the bottom of the diagram is a retractable wall that could be opened to connect with the outdoor event lawn. I'll show you more on that in just a second. The dotted lines within the main hall would be retractable air walls to provide more flexibility on the event sizes and layouts. This was a big goal for the event center plans overall, that it be flexible and able to accommodate a variety of uses. The building is intended for events and activities with 300 to 2,500 people. It can accommodate more than that, it can do less than that, but really 300 to 2,500 is our main focus. And part of the rationale there is we want to add to what the community has already, not compete with it. Our largest facility, we can seat 400 at Pirates Cove, but it's not completely enclosed. We can seat 250 at Hilton Garden. So as you can see, we're trying to fill a void in the community. Tim mentioned some of the main use types earlier: sports, concerts, galas, and year-round events. The size of the building is specific to what those use types need. In other words, we aren't overbuilding and just hoping that folks figure out how to use it. That helps to manage the risk going in and the cost associated with both the construction and the operation. Importantly, these types of use expand on what we already have instead of taking a flyer or banking on some business segment that we don't have, namely conventions. That's not what our market is, and we're not hoping to build a building and then they'll magically appear. The K that you see in that diagram is the culinary training facility that Tim mentioned. Originally, we started off thinking of it as just a kitchen for the service of the events, and we thought that there was a much bigger opportunity tying in with the schools, as Tim mentioned. So, and in fact, if we can establish a training facility like that, our hope would be that it would attract potential workforce to the area for training and help us with workforce issues that we of course have. The lobby can be used as a pre-function area, sizable space, and in support of events. The other smaller orange block is a versatile space that could be used for meetings or something else entirely. We've talked about using it potentially as locker rooms or redesigning that space, depending on how sports go. Speaking of sports, here are some sample layouts for the different sports. You can see at the top left, we've got a setup for like a championship format basketball with retractable bleachers on either side that could, hold 1,000 people. We see this as an extension to what Dare County Parks and Rec already has. Of course, we have some courts. This would add some much needed courts. The diagram below that, also in orange, it would be able to hold 3 basketball courts. This is kind of important, and back to the point that I said before, we started with the use types and what was needed and worked back to the building. We didn't want to build the building and say, this is great, we can fit 2.5 basketball courts, for instance. So some of the other diagrams you see on the bottom there are pickleball. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America. And as Tim mentioned, we are challenged for indoor space on those. Volleyball, those 2 in the middle on the top, wrestling, gymnastics. You can also imagine cheerleading, indoor soccer, and so on. Importantly, unlike meetings and conventions, sport travelers don't have an expectation of an adjoining hotel. If you have kids, you know that you will travel to wherever those tournaments are happening, and you'll stay as close or not as you can get to the facility. And they travel year-round, which is also very important. So this is the where. Here's a look at the site. With the placement of the event center, which is the blue building, of course, you can see how the event center is turned, and the reason for that is so that retractable wall can be opened and connect to the main event lawn. You can also see plans for the Soundside Boardwalk that Tim mentioned. The darker brown is already built. The lighter brown is to be constructed. So another amenity for the community. In fact, whether we're talking about the boardwalk or the culinary training facility or the sports, concerts, galas, and event uses that it will support, there's a thread that connects all this. And that is, the event center is intentionally being designed to be just as useful and appealing for the people that live here as it is for visitors. We can do both. The Tourism Board would certainly appreciate your support of the event center concept. There's a ton of work yet to do with the state, with the town of Nags Head, with the county. But having the support of a single concept allows us to put all of our energy and effort behind one direction instead of 12 or 20. I think that's when you were involved, Mr. Mayor. We were thinking what if, and it was a big wide open site. So we've made a lot of progress getting to this point with the one concept, and we would certainly welcome your support of it. Thanks for your time. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to come specifically to us. I saw that you had some meetings, and I have a pesky job that doesn't let me have as much flexibility to make those things as I used to. I really wanted to get over there because, like you mentioned, I've been following this since I was on the board myself back in the early aughts. And like 18 years ago, time flies. Even back then, we were talking about some sort of place where we could gather more of our community together out of the weather and have a drink or some food. I was president of the Restaurant Association for 10 years, and we grew our flagship event from a small event to a very big week-long event, and have thousands of people showing up. But when we wanted to have the big marquee event, we were limited, and we would sell out every time, and that was 18 years ago. So I'm sure that it will be well utilized now and well into the future. And even though you've mentioned, not making more than you need, I'm sure that there's some room to grow in there. And the creative folks on the Outer Banks will put it to good use, I am sure.
Thank you. Yeah, we were really, the tourism board has worked hard to still try to take advantage of the natural beauty and the openness of the space. So I think that the biggest challenge throughout the planning process was trying to right-size the building and not build more than we need, but give us something that we don't have right now, and hopefully make us less reliant on the 3 months of summer. We've seen time and time again how that can be a problem. So our hope is to flatten that bell curve and provide more business in the less than peak months.
Couple questions.
Yes, sir.
Will the adventure park stay there? It looked like it did in that diagram.
Thank you for bringing that up. The adventure park is a long-term tenant. They could be there if they exercise options for another 10 to 15 years. The ropes course itself is out over the wetlands, so that doesn't really impede anything. And with the turning of the building, the viewers aren't really looking directly at that. They're more focused on the event lawn. I should point out that Pamlico Jacks would go away, and in this diagram you can sort of see it there, but their parking spaces are on top. The Dairy Queen would go away as well. The right half of the building is mostly where the old mini golf used to be. So by removing the Dairy Queen building and Pamlico Jacks building, we are taking up about 28% of that streetscape with the building. So, roughly 70% of it still remains open.
One more question. I like the diagram to show how the different size fields would fit in the facility. Could a regulation size soccer field fit in there?
I'm pretty sure it would
Pretty big.
if I don't know those dimensions off the top of my head, but we could fit 3 basketball courts side by side in there at one time. So, but indoor soccer I think would be
Smaller.
particularly
Smaller.
I mean, we're what we're proposing with the sports use is never going to outdo a dedicated sports facility like you find in Rocky Mount, but that facility is 150,000 square feet. It's multiples of what we're talking about, but it does provide a valuable use type that'll do both year-round tourism as well as give the community something that it needs.
It's a great looking plan, because I'm super familiar with it. I realize it's a big bump up in parking. All the events that we love to go to, that's always been a challenge that you have to ride a bus or walk in or bike in. It's going to make even the outdoor events even more enjoyable. And like you said, it's very sensitive to the viewscape, and from an architectural standpoint, I can imagine that the glass that faces southwest will keep you warm in the wintertime, but when the sun sets farther to the northwest, it'll be shady in the summer. So somebody's been thinking that through, I'm sure.
The parking spaces are an area where we need to work with. Nags Head, their ordinance was developed without, consideration for a facility like this. It doesn't exist, of course. So if we built 2 ordinance, all those parking spaces would need to be paved, but I don't think that's the intention of the town or the tourism board. So the size of the building is another area where we're going to have to work with them. So a lot of work yet to do, but we feel like
Well,
we're on
there's
the
a
right
way,
track.
and I think you've got the support of this board. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn.
I was just gonna comment that, I did do an event there, and, it was our first time for doing an event there. We were well pleased with the facility and more than pleased with the help from staff. They accommodated us in every way, but we had people that came from Philadelphia, and we had people that came from New York, and we had people that came from Texas, all over. And I think, I'm pretty confident that I can say this, every one of them were at the west side of this site looking out over the sound saying, wow. I mean, the site is just so amazing in the view that it has and the amenities that it offers. I think this is a huge step in the right direction. You guys are to be commended for this.
Thank you.
Very good.
Boardwalks alone are gonna be a big step up. It's really exciting.
One day that boardwalk will extend to KDH.
There you go.
Time for us to sit down, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very nice.
All right, next item on our agenda is ongoing business, the golf carts.
Yes, sir. The board had a presentation back in April from a gentleman from Ocean Atlantic Rentals, asking you to consider allowing golf carts in town. They were speaking specifically to the west side of our town. And the board had asked the staff to review what concerns or issues that we saw. And in the memorandum before you, you have the town attorney's review and you have the police department's review. Without going through this and reading what you've already read, I will tell you that Assistant Police Chief Dana Harris is here this evening, and of course, as you can see, our town attorney is here. So I'll ask if the board has any questions of any of these gentlemen or anything that I can address. But our recommendation is that the board would not allow the golf carts on the town, in the town, seeing that there really isn't any way to just limit it to the west side.
Well, there was a lot in the package, board members, and I think we really appreciate all the work put in by staff, particularly the different departments and Mr. Varnell. It is a tricky one. There are communities that integrate golf carts very seamlessly. When you look at, when you look at our layout, you know, the memorandum points out the challenges of the destinations people want to go, and those things wouldn't be allowed, particularly crossing the bypass or getting to Miss Helen's or ABC store. It said all sorts of things that cause really tricky enforcement issues that would be, you know, a bunch of negatives for the people involved and for the departments that have to deal with it. I live in the west side. I think a lot of us do. All of us do. And you know, because we know our own neighborhoods, we know they don't all connect north to south, so that presents a problem too. If you can't get from so many places to so many other places, then you know, how practical is this really? Ivy and I were talking about all the other issues that come up about how old are people that are driving these things, what are the rules about that? There's the two different kinds, and I know that law enforcement is already having to deal with enforcement of those. I think we all kind of dream of the possibility of it because, you know, Ivy and I've talked about, you know, it's greener, they're not noisy, they look like happiness and fun. And I think even though we really want to integrate them, we hear you when it comes to all of those downsides that were in the memorandum. I don't want to do all the talking, but board members, do you have thoughts?
No, I would agree with you. I think we have some limitations that other places don't have. We're not Ocracoke. It's not, you know, we have a major highway running through our town, and what's to say, you know, how are we going to keep them from crossing? I know I was telling Ben, and I also told Officer Harris that I was walking down Bay Drive the last couple of weeks, just a few times in the evening, and there are children driving golf carts. There are what I would say 10 and 11-year-old children driving golf carts with only children in them. And so I think if we get into a situation where, as much as I love the idea of more electric vehicles being on the road and us cutting down on potential gas vehicles, I think we also are going to increase our liability in children, and we're going to increase, having to staff that. And so I'd like to see us maybe work on this some more. I don't know if there's I don't know. I don't know if there's a middle ground. I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where our town is set up for it, but
I think the middle ground may be the other vehicles that are referenced here,
Right.
the LSVs, because they have regulations at the state level. And that are
so that would
enforceable.
eliminate our, right.
So basically it's treated like a car, yeah?
Yes, you have to be licensed, it has to have the seatbelts.
They're a bit more expensive, but barrier to entry comes with a lot of safety and
Yes.
that sort of thing. Obviously, the presentation was from a business, could benefit from such a thing, and it isn't that we don't want this to come to succeed, and I understand where they're coming from. There's certainly demand out there. I feel like a lot of people want these things to be available. But taken as a whole, it's got a lot of gray area that's, the negatives are kind of outweighing the positives in my view anyway. Even though I'm a supporter of the idea. So I don't think this is a hard no for me anyway. I think I'm with Ivy that it's worth continuing to think about, and
I kind of agree with what Ivy's saying. I'd hate to see it, just be squashed altogether.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I read in this was that in the town attorney's report, he indicated that other municipalities have approved ordinances to allow it. And I'd like to look at those. I'd like to see them, and take a look at how they did it. There may be, like you said, a middle ground. I think that we don't need to get into over-regulation with it as far as, actually inspecting them and so on and so forth. I think you open yourself up to a lot of liability when you start doing that. I'm very supportive of it, but I'm not supportive of it enough right now to say, yeah, let's do it, because I've got some questions that I need to have answered. I'd like to see what the other ordinances are that people have approved it with.
that's a good point. I thought of that too, and I also thought that I love making a data-driven decision, and I don't really have a handle on the volume of locals that would be interested in this, because I assume if it's the west side, maybe it's a few of the rentals that are on the west side, but it might be locals that want to go to their neighbor's house or whatever.
Well, the police department, the calls that they get are from people vacationing here, wanting to bring the golf cart
Right.
to get to the beach.
Like 80% of those are on the west side, or east side of the bypass rather, so it doesn't really apply.
Right, but certainly we can, in fact, Casey had shared with us,
I did.
Wendell.
I did attach Commissioner Gray to that, which again, it's not the only, it was just an example, but the town of Wendell, which of course is a more centrally located area than we are, for sure. Maybe not with the main thoroughfare, but it is an example of an ordinance that was crafted to their suit, so.
Do we have any towns here in the county that have done this?
To my knowledge, I'm not aware of
I
any.
think Doug,
Duck has,
Does Doug, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
but they're
that's
unique,
west
they're
side.
private streets, and
That's
NC 12 is the only thing that gives
Very
access
good
to
point.
crossing.
They don't have a highway.
Yeah, and the street they can't cross is away from the beach, not where they want to go, which is the beach.
And even the through streets in Duck that are governmentally maintained, it's not by the town, it's by the state. There are a few state roads that run Sound to Sea there, but none that the town has any responsibility for, so.
I like the idea of maybe looking into some more. I like the idea of golf carts, but I do think that don't quite fit our town layout right now. Studying it some more, see what other towns are doing, and to work on it some more, see where it goes. It's complicated. It's kind of not easy to say no. It's not very easy to welcome it either. So it needs a little more work.
I think that's where it seems like there's a consensus there.
we will do that and report back to the board. Thank you.
Very much.
Next item is new business. A non-charitable special event to use OBX. You gonna preface this?
While she's getting out her information, I'll just start the ball. The town has received a special events permit application from News Original Amy Hill doing business as Bus 252. This is for a non-charitable event to be held at the Outer Banks Brewing Station. They propose to hold it every Monday from 5 o'clock in the evening to 9 o'clock, June 6th through the September the 6th. The request does not allow the staff to approve this. It requires approval from the Board of Commissioners. But we've just outlined some of the items of concerns that we have. We did get some updated information from Ms. Hill that we provided to you on Tuesday, and that you also have at your place there at the dais. And that includes some other answers, some of the questions answered that were not originally on our application, and also the owner of the brewing station giving permission for this. One of the concerns that the staff has is that there is no event that's associated with this request. Typically, when the board is looking at would approve this, there would be something else tied to this. In the past, Ms. Hill has done events that where a charity has been the event, and proceeds from the sales have gone. Some of the proceeds have gone to the charities. But here, the event is only the sale of the items from her bus. And as our ordinance looks at this would be an itinerant vendor simply setting up at another place of business selling wares that we have brick and mortar stores selling the same thing with no other event tied to it. And Meredith, please add.
I'm actually gonna let Cameron do most of this, but I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. It just went away. It just went out my ear.
You didn't sleep well.
Well,
It didn't sleep well.
Debbie hit most of the info on what's being proposed as a non-charitable special event, but really as an itinerant vendor requesting to set up an existing restaurant with an outdoor dining activity area, which is a special use in the commercial zone. That special use doesn't include retail sales in that space unless it's part of the special events in our special events ordinance. Originally, there were some issues with the application. It just wasn't completely filled out. And additionally, the owner authorization that was received at a later time, it didn't have any signature or anything other than just, it was a memo from the owning manager.
In Word document form.
Yeah. So we would require, a signature to be with that as well. Required parking, Outer Banks Brewing Station parking spaces are required parking spaces. The sketch she provided later does show the bus in the backyard area, so just gonna clear that up a little bit. And then from the fire department, they're just wishing that they don't block any drive aisles or anything. That'll be a safety concern, or fire lanes. And just kind of look at some background of Chapter 111. This was updated by the Board of Commissioners in 2019 to create more flexibility for events in Kill Devil Hills. The update was a culmination of several meetings with the intent to allow more flexibility for festivals and events in Kill Devil Hills. The ordinance maintained that itinerant vendors were prohibited unless part of special events. One itinerant vendor has applied for to sell merchandise weekly at a location throughout the summer months is not part of a special event and does not meet the intent of the ordinance. However, as part of the revision, the Board of Commissioners did add commercial yard sales as an exempt activity. The commercial yard sale regulations allow for a commercial site to hold 4 yard sales per year, using up to 10% of the required parking area for no more than 5 consecutive days. The applicant may be better suited to apply for a commercial yard sale with owner consent. A copy of Chapter 111 is attached for your consent, for your convenience. Staff recommends denial of the application because the application does not meet the minimum application requirements and is not part of a special event. Additionally, staff recommends the applicant work with a commercial establishment and apply for a commercial yard sale permit. The commercial yard sale was presented to Ms. Hill, and she did state in an email that it wasn't enough events for what she's requesting. So that's why she's coming to you tonight, because 4 events isn't what she's looking for. She's looking to do it all summer. So we'd be happy to answer any questions in particular with our special events ordinance or looking at land use questions.
You had a thought?
I did, at the end of that, the other concern that staff does have that we wanna bring to the board is that, because of this application and it being really more of an itinerant vendor than an event, additional applications will probably come to the board similar to this for simply an itinerant vendor, that they are their own event, is essentially what we've gotten out of our correspondence with her, is that she is the event. And that does bring some concerns, and particularly for our brick and mortar businesses, summer months are when they need to thrive. And if they have competition that doesn't have overhead, doesn't require employees, doesn't pay any of our tax base, it may be a conflict.
And that's where a lot of these rules came from originally.
Correct.
Right. And we also had, if I'm understanding the history correctly, we had a problem with all sorts of folks trying to vend in the neighborhoods and the beach accesses and in every
On the
parking
beach.
lot on the beach, selling hot dogs. And all of this is about trying to balance the nature of the community that we have versus the sort of a freewheeling past that can't really exist anymore.
I'll chime in. I support the staff's recommendation here. When I was reading this precedent, something that kept popping up in my mind as a real concern, and do we want to take a step forward that would lead to undesirable itinerant vendors and things we don't want them. And we worked pretty hard on the yard sale thing a few years ago. The door's not still to be shut. They want to do 4 in the country, they can do 4. So there's a little room to work there, but I agree with staff's recommendation for this.
Because I know that a lot of artists and folks that participate in various farmers markets in other parts of the county and ours, our event, are all paying close attention to this issue, just generally how it evolves. It seems to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, that this application isn't far off, putting aside the sort of thumbing the nose tone of it all. If this event had any event-worthy component, an art auction for charity, or a demonstration of how to make things, or a puppet show, or any kind of event, it would be an event. But on its face, what has been presented is just itinerant.
And in the summer months, a charitable event is permitted, but only a charitable event, not with for-profit vendors. Okay, so the charitable events can be approved at a staff level, year-round. So if it was an SPCA event and all the money was going to SPCA, we can permit that year-round. If they wanna do an event with for-profit vendors, such as the SPCA is part of the Christmas and all the vendors that are there are gonna give 10% of their profits to the SPCA. That is, that's allowed September through May. And then when the board redid the ordinance, they looked at this non-charitable event to come to the board so that if there was a large event, and I think, Terry, correct me, we talked about the car show. Some of that does have some charity to it, but those big community events, that you wanted the ability to have those because they're good for the community as a whole. They're
They
short-lived.
make money for like 3 different nonprofits.
But an event like that, is, and they would come, these events that were not charitable could come to the board, and you could look at them. And I read the minutes, and it was for, the good of the community, an event that was for the good of the community. The board wanted to be able to make those decisions for those types of events. And there may be an event that's good for the community, maybe she can create an event that's good for the community and come back to the board, with a little more.
Yeah, and I have something to add to that. I mean, also looking at this request, I mean, it's not a single event. It's every Monday through the entire summer. That's where it's not an event, that's asking to be an allowed use.
Right.
You know, we have a very specific list of permitted uses and special uses, and itinerant vendors is not one of them. And I think that's, you know, this is what the list has been, and it's fair to the other businesses in town, because you know what's your competitor, you know what's allowed, and they have development regulations that go with it. You have certain parking regulations, building codes and how many bathrooms you need, you know. Those follow those things, but obviously through the special events ordinance, it gives a little bit of flexibility to have these things that are really driven to be community events. The flexibility of the non-charitable and of the commercial yard sales kind of relaxed a couple of things that gave people the opportunity. Well, you can at least come and ask the board, you know, if it's a consideration, you know, to have something like this in the summer months, or to be a completely non-charitable event. Somebody wants to have a taco cook-off in the Seagate North Shopping Center. They come and they tell the board that all the businesses are gonna be closed, there's ample parking, and it's all for profit. That could be a cool community event, I don't know, that's just an example. But I think there's that flexibility, but what this is asking for is the use, not as an event. And that's really where it's different. In my mind, at least, as a planner, I get into thinking about land use.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. There's a structural way that all the logic is put together, and I definitely understand that it seems a little impenetrable to the outside person, particularly somebody starting off in business, and wanting to, you know, get going on a shoestring. I started my business on a shoestring years and years ago, and I know how hard it is. And you're looking for any way to kind of get going. I see your point about use, though. That, I think, really is what we should probably bring to the forefront here, is that there's special event, and then there's doing something on the regular. Those are two different animals. And, you know, I think the individual discussions I've had with various board members, both recently and over the years, has been always sensitive to all of the folks that put these rules in back in the day, because they were solving a problem. And we have to be very careful not to undo a solve and recreate the problem. Because there is a lot of demand from outside folks to come in and sell their wares any way that they can. And we're trying to balance the needs of our, you know, folks that are starting up, as well as folks that have already got.
And when to add to that, to help with that balance, the board started First Flight Market. Last year we had 45 vendors. This year we're looking to expand it to at least 75. We might be able to get to 78. We're looking at space, we're measuring, and we have enough vendors to fill it, and it is every week, through the whole summer.
But you have to look at that. Everybody has a certain criteria that they have to apply to, a space, a table, you know.
It's a 10 by 10 tent, yes.
And you've got to keep that so that everybody's, you know, the same.
It's fair.
Yeah, and to make it fit, it's a very successful market. I mean, it just, to me, it's going past Dowdy's. I mean, you know, it's very successful. But you have to have those rules, and people have to subscribe to them, because that keeps it fair and equitable for everybody. So, you know, but I want to go a little bit different angle on this.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at the application, and I don't think the application is complete. There's a lot of places where there's questions that are asked where it just says NA.
There's is the updated, there's.
Yeah, even the updated one is not.
Oh, is the updated one not?
Yeah, even the updated one is not. And you know, it just, when you ask a specific question, you need to get some information. You're trying to find out how a person is going to react to an event or how a person is going to deal with an emergency. I do events, and I've been to quite a few of them and set them up, and when they ask me a question about what kind of emergency plan you're going to have to deal with something, this is what I give them. I mean, and it's a table of contents in it, and it tells you how you're going to react to each and every event that comes up. That's part of what they're asking. You know, how are you going to deal with a fire? Well, you know, it's not whether or not you have a fire, it's whether there's a fire that happens, and how are you going to deal with it. So, that was one of the big concerns I had when looking at this. I don't think the application is complete enough to say, yay or nay. I back what staff's saying. I think they are on the money with their recommendations and how you're dealing with it. So I'm supportive of staff in this.
Yeah, I recall putting on a few events in Nags Head when my store was in Nags Head decades and decades ago, and even way back then, I think it was a 7 or 8 page application that had all those questions. How many people do you expect? Where are they gonna park? Where are they gonna go to the bathroom? What are you gonna do if they get hurt? All that sort of thing. I mean, that's what event planning is. And even when it's on a small scale, it needs to be considered. I have spoken with the applicant numerous times, and there are lots of areas that we've discussed that have potential ways to continue to improve them. These ordinances have been, amended and updated numerous times, and these aren't the only kind of challenging areas that are presented. So I look forward to continuing the discussion to figure out, what else can be done to improve it. And I think that staff has offered some other alternatives that work for our town, in our town, which is different from all the other towns, and we have our own concerns and our own history. That's not to say that we aren't completely sympathetic and want all of our folks here to succeed. Our business is small, of any size. Making or creating anything, we're all on board for that. I know it's probably not what the applicant wanted to hear, but that's where we stand. So I think we're taking staff's recommendation on this one.
We could have a motion to deny, Mayor, please.
Yep.
Motion to deny the request.
Mayor, I'll make that motion to deny the non-charity special event use of OBX.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. One last chance for further discussion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is committee reports.
Move here.
Sue Kelly, just come in and watch tonight.
I'm addicted.
Super fan. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Commissioner's agenda. Why don't we start down here?
Nothing here, Mayor.
Nothing tonight. All right. Likewise, the mayor does not have much to say. Ms. Town Manager, I'm sorry.
No, sir, thank you.
And how about Mr. Barnell?
Nothing from me, Mayor.
Right. That gets us to the consent agenda.
Yes, sir, short consent agenda this evening, 3 items. The first being the minutes from the May 16th, 2022. Budget amendment number 19 to record the revenue and associated expenditures for leases in accordance with the new leasing standards, Gatsby 87. And 2 partnership annual reports, the first being from Interfaith Community Outreach and the Outer Banks YMCA. The staff recommends approval of the consent agenda as presented, and a motion would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. We have consent agenda. And on to the budget work session. I'm going to ask for a moment of personal privilege because I ran in here without making my usual sign.
We need to do some seating changes.
Take a couple minutes. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's go through this recommended budget, see what you think about it. As you know from the budget message and then just some of the general highlight information, it does not recommend a tax increase either for the regular tax rate or the MSD. I'd like to just point out some items that we are recommending changing in our fee schedule. Which is Roman numeral XB, which is behind tab 2, ordinance, budget ordinance, that's where your fee schedule is. We are recommending to increase the fee for the applications for town code amendments and the fee for the Board of Adjustment amendments, both of those to $500. The Board of Adjustment fees, there are costs that the town incurs. We have the cost for the town attorney, and we also have the cost for the zoning Board of Adjustment attorney, which the cost is borne by the town. So we feel that the $500 fee for that is more reasonable. And then for the code amendments, some are getting very complicated and it requires a lot of staff time. We feel that the $500 is more in keeping with that staff time. Also on here, we are requesting a fee for the non-charitable special events as one that just appeared before you, $100 per event. That currently doesn't have any charge because that's the first one we've actually had that needed to come to the board. And then I think the only other one is we do now have a town flag that will be available for sale, and that's been added, and that is cost plus some administrative fee, and that's $90. It's a big, nice looking flag.
I think other towns are closer to 500 too, aren't they, for those adjustments and things?
I know Nags Head is.
I reviewed all the other towns, and this was very much in line with our neighbors, yes.
It's just funny that somebody just mentioned that to me recently about Kitty Hawk, and I'm like, well, I think ours is lower, so
It
now
is.
we're in line.
And the fee for the the charitable special event review is still free of charge.
Charitable stuff.
Right.
Just good point.
So that's
Just to
not
make
in
that
here.
clear, because.
We definitely want to support that.
Sure. So if there's no issues with that, maybe we could flip to page 2 of behind tab 4. And these are just some highlights of the revenues. As I said, there's no increase in the tax rate. State and local sales tax are projected to increase 3.75%. Occupancy tax is expected to remain at the 21-22 level during the first half of 2023 and decline 12% in the second half with updated levy percentages. That's due to the fact that the shared revenues would change. Land transfers projected at the 5-year actual average. Power bill, which is based on the street mileage, is scheduled to be the same. Revenues for general sales tax and electricity is based on projected energy consumption, is estimated to be at the fiscal 21-22 level. And then you have the water fund administrative costs allocation, which is based on a ratio formula applied to share cost. The revenues, which begin on page 4, have been conservative, but we don't feel that we've been overly conservative. But as the last 2 years have taught us, just don't know. But we're comfortable, we're very comfortable with these Beverly and Angel have spent a lot of time and compared and talked to, and even with their broken wing.
It's good to see you. Very good to see you. Let me just say one thing if I can, Mayor. I was gonna bring it up. I got so excited about the flag that I missed the opportunity to say it, on 4, when it was talking about general fund expenses. The sidewalk and multi-use capital fund, I've talked to town manager about it in finance, and I plan to request an additional 100,000 to go into that, to bring it up to a total of 300,000. So I can address it later, you know, in the budget, but I was gonna get it right there when we were
New side.
So, so please consider that. Sorry about that.
If the board is amenable, I think the best way to go through the budget is to get into each department, and I'll do the highlights, and if you have any questions of myself or the finance department or the department head for that budget, everybody's here. So with that, if you would go to tab 6, page 14. We are recommending a 6% COLA, and you'll see that reflected departmentally, and that's for the general fund and the water fund employees. In the administration, we're continuing to recommend funding of town-sponsored special events, such as the 4th of July fireworks, Christmas at the Town Hall, the Ice Cream Social, Trash Attack, and continuing with our community service, Community Appearance Commission. And their funding is recommended at $5,000.
And I think that's a great investment.
There was, as you can see, there, of course, is some tweaking from the plan year budget. It's an increase in cost. Continue to recommend the partnerships has been established and that we're currently working with. And the administration budget is not requesting or recommending any capital outlay funding. On tab 7, we go into the building and grounds. Page 18, touch on some of the highlights. We have the debt service for the Public Works Complex. Capital outlay items include $50,000 for mezzanine at the Public Works, $100,000 improvement ADA compliance. Continuing with Meekins Field, $250,000 to upgrade lights and add a roof over the hockey rink and aviation. $164,200 improvements to aviation, and bless you, $30,000 for beach access improvements. Both the capital reserve for shoreline and recreation facilities looking at $75,000. And as we get into the planning department budget, you'll see where we're looking at consultant to update those. So we are looking for that, just to start back increasing those funds to get the money to do what they recommend for that. You've got your line by line on 19 and 20. And then the particulars of some of those things I just spoke to on page 21 and go into a little more detail.
Do you have any concept of what the the roof of the hockey rink may look like? What kind of, how it may, I mean, I figured it'd be a little more expensive to put a roof over it than that, but I'm not an expert, but do we have any concept for that yet?
Metal roof.
Or,
It says
Well, just-
licensed roof, put metal roof over it, I don't
I
know.
was just curious if it would be able to cool off that rink enough, that surface enough in the summer to house vendors on that space. We have our markets. I mean, it was too hot to use that space for vendors in the summertime on a hot sunny day. But if there's a potential to kind of give more vendor space in the summertime with this roof, but I'm not sure. That's just my thought process when I was reading this. Thought it was a good idea. We can give our a little more flexibility
It's
with our
certainly
market.
something we can look into as we develop more concept. Yeah, it would definitely be too hot in the summer.
Cook eggs, I think. Yeah.
Let's, just take my 2 cents in here too, as Terry did on the other one. We all have our little pet things that we think would be great for the town, and I'd love to see a little more love being given to the beach accesses. I love them, and they're nice and rustic, but I've seen some work getting done, and handrail here, cap there, but there's plenty of opportunity to do a little sprucing up there where I think the citizens would appreciate it. Comes to showers and lighting and, general maintenance is another part of it, but.
Okay,
But I'm looking forward to seeing what happens at Aviation Park, so that money should spread around nicely here too. Yeah. There's a lot more people end up at the beach access every day, so. I know this, I think I've said this before, I think this is the year where people are, to see, well, we've gotten out of this hole economically, what do we have to show for it? So I'm looking for stuff that people notice. Please go ahead though.
okay, tab number 8, Finance and Tax Department, page 24. Our health insurance renewal rates did increase for both active and retirees by 7.5%. We have also included the actuarial study from other post-employment benefit valuations, which is a requirement of GASB 75. You see the line items beginning on page 25. And again, just some tweaking from the plan here with no capital outlay request for finance. Tab number 9, MIS division. Page 27, just some highlights. It includes all the current maintenance contracts and license, with the addition of a service related to teleworking connectivity and increased cyber security. Upgrades are recommended for our current VoIP system, it's a phone system. Includes replacements for the town server, and it also includes moving Laserfish to a cloud-based service. Page 28 shows you the line items. There is some capital that was the, replace the town server, and then a KACE system management. Tab number 10 is our fleet maintenance division. Some of the highlights on 31, page 31, trying to estimate gas prices. Been interesting, but as of this budget being presented to you, our wholesale supplier, and we're budgeting 3.750 a gallon for regular unleaded and 4.250 a gallon for diesel. Just charge that to the individual departments based on usage. This includes addition of an air pressure generator on a service truck and a new tire balancer, and includes some computer and system updates. Page 32 has your line items. And the capital there is for that tire balancer.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
When we determine how much we're gonna pay a gallon for gas, it says from our wholesale supplier, how much is the difference that we pay wholesale versus what retail gas prices are?
We had to, for one thing, you got the tax in the retail that we do not pay.
I was curious, I like the vehicles, you get wholesale price for those as well.
Right, and plus you get the state contract, which is considerably less than what you and I would go and pay.
Yeah.
Fuel is 2.5 times higher than it was in 2019. It's kind of staggering. Or staggering how cheap it was in 2019. Because we get used to it.
And I think what gets even scarier though is in the 70s when it was scarce, when you had
Lines around the clock.
exactly. Tab 11 takes you to the Planning and Development Department. Some of the highlights on page 36 includes, as I alluded to earlier, includes the shoreline access plan and recreation facilities update. It also includes zoning and subdivision chapter ordinance updates. Be busy with updates.
Those updates on those plans are needed.
Yes, sir, they are. $37 is your line items. No questions for planning, we can go to tab 12, beach nourishment. Page 40, it includes the special obligation bond debt payment. As we've discussed, the tax rate remains the same. Includes ongoing beach maintenance, surveying, analysis of the shoreline and the existing projects with your line items on the next page, 41. And our project this year will be starting very soon, back next week after Memorial Day.
Tuesday, you'll start seeing it.
Coming in and starting to set up.
Non-budget related question.
Yes, sir.
Are they gonna offer tours to the commissioners like they did 4 years ago?
We can certainly ask.
Okay, 'cause I gotta
You're
make off the
interested in
boat.
that?
I don't wanna get left off again.
Yeah.
No, I was on the planning board then. I didn't quite cut the mustard to get the money, so,
So they want the tour.
So John, I managed the project and I never got on the boat either, so don't feel bad.
I heard all these wonderful stories.
I bought my steel
So
toe
much
boots.
fun.
Well, we will do what we can to get that request, and I will tell you, you need steel-toed shoes.
Make that happen.
Okay.
I will buy them for the occasion.
Mine are in the closet unworn.
Yeah, they cut us off at the,
Right, yep. I mean, I had my boots and everything, they said.
Ready to go and you didn't make the cut. Oh, man. That looks like some cool toys out there.
Oh, I was jazzed.
We kept hearing about the menu.
The food was supposed to be good. Right? Great stuff out there. Yeah. Ben Coon couldn't stop rubbing it.
Tab 19 will take us to the police department and animal control. Did I skip some?
Okay.
13. Oh, I'm sorry, that's what happens when you take your glasses off. Tab 13. Some highlights on page 45, have the mandatory funding of law enforcement separation allowances for 3 retired police officers. Training is included, of course, we've got body camera and related video service contracts. And then replacing the Motorola Flex CAD RMS MCT system. And that, what you're actually seeing in your budget for that is lease payments.
I'm gonna do my plug for leasing some electric cars.
Yes, sir.
I know we're not gonna put any cruisers in, or fire trucks just yet, but, you know.
Well, as we outlined in the message, we're continuing to look into that and even to the degree of maybe incorporating some charging stations at our parks to help the folks that are driving the electric cars, and maybe while they or their children enjoying the park, charging the vehicle. Just trying to work out some of the things that we're just not familiar with how we would handle it. But we haven't forgotten.
Gotcha.
A couple quick questions for Assistant Chief Harris. How many, just spitballing it, how many miles do we put on one police vehicle per year?
Well, it depends on the officer, what they're working, where they have to go. It could be up to 30,000 more.
All right.
You know, if they're doing, they're having to go to training somewhere outside of the area.
I'm just curious, just general patrol officers, how much just cruising around town they put on a vehicle each year?
I
But the
don't-
cruising could in, but then as miles are dropping, they go to a wreck and they got to sit for 4 or 5 hours. They're not putting miles on it, but the engine's getting a lot of miles on it.
Yes, it is.
So, and the salt water doesn't help it a whole lot.
More hours with the AC running than any,
And heater.
than any of our cars in the
Yeah.
hot summer days, yeah.
Animal control, tab 14, page 51. Continues to be a very hard-working two-people division. And there is no capital outlay request this year for them. There's no questions there. 15 takes us to our fire department. 55, of course, includes the training for certifications, includes health and fitness screenings for both the volunteers and the career firefighters, and we are looking to replace a 2000 KME pumper fire truck.
A question in the fire department, I saw that we were replacing a roof. Did I read that right?
I read it in there, but it weren't funded. They asked if it didn't, OSHA decided it didn't have a fund to it.
Oh, we didn't fund it, okay, okay.
Yes. Oh, the plan year, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
But it doesn't show up.
so, but it's not funding it, okay.
Okay, building and grounds.
I thought it was already
My
done.
mistake.
Wasn't it completed?
We replaced it this year. We've done it.
Gosh,
Well, the question was if we, why were we replacing it if we're
good eye.
doing the firehouse?
Well,
But I made a mistake and didn't follow through and read all the way through on it, so. changed up wings, you caught that one, huh?
That's good, Ocean Rescue, which goes on page 59, includes funding to maintain the present service level of 21 stands.
I have a question on that. How is, and this is just a general question, but the hiring this year, are we competitive, or do we fill all the spots? Do we, because there's not
It's tough hiring environment.
there's not much of a change, right, and it's a tough hiring environment for a short season, so I'm just,
We're looking pretty good right now, Commissioner. Like you said, it is a tough hiring environment and everything right now, but our numbers are looking good to start the season.
It just gets incredibly difficult, when they go back to school, go back to college in
Right.
August.
Right.
And I think Chief and Dave have done an excellent job, recruiting locals who were able to at least keep until it's time to the schools start back. The Y's been very beneficial, and very helpful with that, helping, with those guards, but, we're feeling what the others feel that lose the college folks.
Can I back up one tab? Just one
Sure.
quick question. Chief, what's the normal lifespan for a fire truck?
20 years.
20 years?
Yes, sir.
With such a long ownership, what are the pros and cons of quick on ownership versus leasing where you keep a vehicle that long?
These are lease purchases, we
Buy
own
it.
it.
They're actually finance
It's
purchases.
finance purchasing, not leasing in the sense that you would think of leasing.
That's
You know,
all,
when-
total lease payment is $64,000.
Right, when we come in, we'll come in annually with a big, lease purchase agreement where Beverly and Angel have gone to the different lending institutes, got the best rate, and you'll approve that, and then, so that's what each of these are. And what they do here is estimating when we're gonna receive the vehicles, and then you budget for that many payments. But we would own the vehicle.
All right. Well, we're leasing, I don't wanna get it back and keep it.
Right.
But, all right, good.
Good question, I know that can be confusing.
It's terminology, and I don't know why that is, but
I don't
it is a
either.
finance purchase is exactly what it is.
Yes, and it is
And then I
confusing.
wanna flip back to where we were, talking about the lifeguards, Chief. When it comes at the end of the season, and they do start going back to school, do y'all actually move them around, or, because it doesn't look like to me there's any difference in the coverage, I mean, we're still covered pretty well.
We do move things around, and we make sure we communicate it to the public through social media and all other avenues, just to let people know that, hey, these are the beaches that will have a lifeguard. And we announced that we are having challenges due to school starting and college getting back and everything like that.
So y'all do a great job with the coverage, I mean, it's, it doesn't look like to me it misses a beat, so.
And we try to
That's all
increase
great.
those roving patrols also with the trucks and then the four-wheelers also.
Dave pulled the stands that
Yeah,
has
good-
police numbers
good job.
in front of it and all that,
Right.
when it's that time of the fall. But yeah, we got some very busy falls, I know.
Yeah, yeah.
and spraying, already, it's been,
Yes. It just doesn't look like it changed as much, and we got the coverage we need, so they're doing a great job.
Okay, are you ready to go to 17?
You ready to do 17?
All right, let's go to 17. Streets is the first division on page 63. The highlight shows the street sidewalk capital reserve, 200,000. If the other board members concur with Commissioner Gray, we'll look to increase that to 300.
I'm definitely supportive of that. If there's more wiggle room, I'd even go higher, but, so those are my two priorities there, and I'm hearing beach accesses, yeah. Yeah, take you one higher.
Mayor, what is your thoughts on, for the beach access number to increase it?
I'm sure that we can find a way to spend $100,000 there too. I mean, there's plenty of room. It's a lot of beach accesses and, I don't wanna micromanage what needs to get done. I just know that, they look like they're very lean. We're not wasting any money there. We are keeping it running, and it has a rustic charm to it, but I think that our population and our tourism base is evolving
Yeah,
to
there's 100,000 in the maintenance for beach access.
maintenance.
In the
Okay,
maintenance section.
okay,
So
maybe
in
I'll
addition
put that.
to the 75. Yeah, the 75 is reserve funding, but there's also major
Well, I saw
improvements.
30.
I think the major improvements were 30, right?
So that's it, so again, it's one of those accounting things where it's in
It
multiple
is,
places.
it's maintenance is ongoing maintenance and replacing boards and this and
Yeah,
that,
okay.
and, you know, whatever. I think it was 30.
It is, yeah, it's
30
Maybe that's
is
more
for,
right size for that,
for
then.
additional major improvements. I don't know what that plan is, it could be a gazebo, it could be something else, but it's big, major capital.
That's where we did the Prospect access bathroom, that money a few years ago.
Mm-hmm, so, yeah, but yeah, the ongoing maintenance is about, is it 100 or 105?
105.
Okay, that seems a little more.
Yeah, it's more in line with what you're thinking.
Right, gotcha.
Okay.
And the capital reserve is something that we would use when we apply for grants, right?
Right.
Typically,
To leverage it out. yeah.
and so as we do our update to the shoreline access plan, and the board continues to contribute to that, then we can apply for grants and use the capital reserve fund for either new accesses or full rebuilds, larger, like full tear down rebuilds.
Gotcha. Maybe I'm advocating in that direction, I was looking at the wrong line.
But I would agree with the sidewalks.
Yeah, thank you. I noticed that Hank said was doing a good job promoting the sidewalks that they put in recently, it's always good.
Well, they've started doing that east west now.
Yep.
We're doing with our street improvements, like Third Street. Which
Looking forward to taking lots of pictures.
That's looking
of the street
good.
here shortly.
that's pretty work back there on Third.
So
That
that,
place is looking really good.
Sorry.
That's all I'm saying.
okay, so, just to reiterate, the budget that goes to public hearing is the recommended budget.
Right.
The budget ordinance that you adopt will include an additional 100,000 for sidewalk, capital reserve. Okay?
Gotcha. Recommended, Yeah.
Tab 18 is your POW bill. Then we get into solid waste, which is next tab. Page 69, we are estimating 10,850 tons of garbage for tipping fees at $90 per ton, which does include a monthly fuel surcharge, and an estimated 1,100 tons of C&D at $65 per ton. We continue to do our tub grinding, and we're gonna recommend to replace 2 garbage trucks and purchase a grapple attachment for the roll-off.
Has there been a benefit with the mulch over at the aviation park? Has that moved any more mulch for us?
I think it's been a good benefit, for people that maybe have limited time and wanna do nights and weekends off hours. I don't think it's made an appreciable dent in our pile back there. We still have an abundance, so anybody wants to do some landscaping,
Is it too much trouble to do that at aviation? Okay.
No, and like Steve said, it does allow for people that want to get the mulch when we're not open.
Correct. And I've heard that too in a positive way.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't get the regular hours most of the time, so.
Yeah, I've seen people, I've seen.
I have a trailer, I get enough. It'll fit so much in my little car. I'll bring my trailer. Horse.
no questions there.
A lot more rollout cards, so we had that budget amendment a while back,
Yes.
more dumpsters too.
That concludes the general fund unless there's any other questions or we could go back or comments. Tab 22 will take us into the water fund. We do, as you know, we do have the water rate increasing 4%, which follows the water system master plan. The water tap fees is adopted by that plan, and then it includes an $18,750 repayment to the wastewater fund. On page, tab 24, page 82, as I stated earlier, 6% COLA, same health insurance increase in general and liability insurance. And then we're including a purchase of a generator and an auto transfer switch. Capital outlay, you see on page 85, 30,000. The water plant divisions, next tab, page 87, the wholesale water rate is $1.97 per thousand. This includes an 8th Street tank wash and tank maintenance contract. Plan improvements include $206,000 for the Old Town Hall generator and automatic switch, $18,000 to upgrade the chlorine system at 8th Street, $26,000 for the Old Town Hall check valves, $62,000 for the Old Town Hall umbrellas, $20,000 for supervisor control and data acquisition, radio and antenna replacement.
The water tower was out long ago already.
Do what?
I was looking at that big spike from, what was the big capital outlay? I thought that was the water tower. Feels like it was 5 minutes ago. We're getting ready.
Water systems, their next tab, page 91, includes $75,000 for water line improvements associated with the street project, and it also includes the $505,000 for Seminole, Indian, and 158th Street drainage improvements that are associated with the water system.
Will this plan for Seminole run the length of Seminole or just from Indian to 3rd Street?
Indian to Third.
So just connected those pieces. Okay.
Yeah, it's the portion that we had planned to do this year, but then when Third Street went all the way to Bay, it became too big, we portioned that off.
We talked about Wrightsville a few times the last few years and costs kept pushing it back. Where does that sit on the timeline now?
That's the out year, the following year. So we'll do Seminole, the water main replacement on Indian, the drainage improvements on 158 and up to Durham near the bypass next year. Go out to bid, hopefully late June, early July. We'll be to you guys in August or September to present bids. We'll complete that next off season, and then Wrightsville the following year
And we have applied for grant funding
for Wrightsville,
for Wrightsville.
which we should know July, August.
Very good.
Wastewater, page 96, maintains the current rate structure, base charges as outlined in the wastewater fund capital improvement plan. And basically your expenditures will continue to operation and maintenance have been contracted, and it does include that replacement to the water, repayment to the water fund, as I mentioned earlier. Mr. Mayor, that concludes our recommended budget.
Extraordinary thing, I was just thinking in the back of my head, how you've seen it, progress over all these years and all the things that have been accomplished. Reminded me of the report you put together about how many sidewalks we've built in the last 10 years and the water tower, and things just keep marching on, and eventually Beacons Field will be done, and we'll be excited to celebrate that. And I know everybody that lives on 3rd Street will be thrilled when that project is finished.
Yes.
I took a drive back to Collington, not our part of the world, but Collington, all that. They're gonna be glad when that's done too.
Oh, absolutely. And just, I know you all had this in your budget, and just a lot of really good information on this one sheet. That may help you with some talking points if you need that for your constituency.
Yeah, nicely done.
Yeah, this is great.
Each nourishment, that's 18% sort of spread out, it's kind of a solid, every year kind of thing now. Forever now.
I remember when they came and presented and said it was like a once every 15 years, 12 years.
Sold one way and done another.
That was early in the game.
Oh, I know, but still their original presentation was not as it turned out. But that's okay.
I hadn't seen it broken out in residential and commercial before. It made me wonder what those numbers were in Kitty Hawk and Ag said. It's kind of the business hub here.
I think a very interesting point from that was back when Pete Burkheimer was doing the presentation and on the water system and the fees and the structure. I thought it was very interesting that the initial hookup fees, that does not pay the majority of the cost that your residents and their water use does.
Yeah.
And that was something I never really thought about, because you see that big, large amount, but that's a one-time
Yeah,
fee.
it's the incremental,
Mhm.
the big money is the every month,
Right.
forever and ever.
Right. Well, with that, we will have a budget ordinance prepared for the first meeting in June, and if after the public hearing, you're so inclined, you would be able to adopt the budget at that meeting.
Not the 13th.
Yes, sir.
I may have missed it in here, but do we have, I like the breakdown here, residential versus commercial. But in residential, is there a breakdown anywhere by zone, like how much the the residential zone contributes, how much the OIR contributes, commercial.
Somebody once told me that OIR was 40% of the tax base, and I have no idea if that's true or not.
But yeah, I'd like to know that. Yeah,
Okay.
no
I
rush.
think we can get it, because we got all that information when we were doing MSD.
I know we got it from the MSD.
Yeah, we do, yeah, ocean,
You can probably back it out of that tax and figure it out.
We just have to get the whole tax thing and then sort it.
Yeah, no rush, it's just, I've had similar comments when it come to me, and I'd like to know the facts behind that, actual data.
Just the facts.
Yeah. Public likes to get their head around how, just the broad outlines of, our unusual economy makes for good talking points. And people love to have stories to tell they're out of town. Friends that come visiting.
And I love the 1 penny. I mean, that's such a good visual.
Yeah, the tax rate in Norfolk is like $1.20. So it just reminds you that they complain that our taxes are too high. You go, well, you're in Norfolk,
Yeah.
4 times higher. Especially after the county. We didn't spend too much time on COLA. I did want to tell you that when I met with all the other mayors, it was a big topic of discussion at the last mayor's lunch. And I can't say I remember them all, but I think most were in the 5% range, and they were using, what do they call it, merit and bonuses as a way to do the rest of it. We don't often talk about that, but it seemed to be what all the other mayors were talking about, so like, well, I better be up on this.
NAG's had 6.
It is 6, next it is 6.
That's the recommended,
Right, okay, yeah, they
Same
haven't
here,
approved
yeah.
it either.
so,
Yeah, I think it must have been Duck or something short that's at 5, and then they want to do another
and
chunk
they,
of
yeah,
money
they do other things.
They do different ways to-
Yeah.
incentivize X, Y, or Z. It seems to be pretty in line with what has been going on with the economy.
I just wanted to say again that, it's a pretty clean budget and a very nice budget. Y'all did a great job. You and your staff continue to amaze. Yeah,
Especially in an unusual time.
y'all
Yeah, I
did
agree.
very nice.
Great.
And it's a big team effort. I mean,
It is. The
all
department
the
heads,
department heads.
Department
they
heads
do a really good
and,
job.
They do it.
you
Getting
know,
their information to Beverly and Angel and,
Yep.
and her department with Ron and everybody has a role.
Yep. Very, very good.
I
But-
agree, thank you.
In tourism, they talked about how badly the cities got hurt in Raleigh and places that were counting on business travel. That was down dramatically, 40-50% for a huge chunk of time, and I don't think it's ever really recovered, and we've been fortunate out here.
Absolutely. Business travel, concerts,
Yeah,
other
last
events.
500, all that stuff. It
Events,
must have been
yeah.
tough budget time for those
sporting
budget folks.
events. Yeah.
They're growing like crazy, and then they had this big hit to the revenue side. It must have been
Sure.
a tough budget time for them. Thanks for all you do. I'll keep on digging in it. Try to get my head
Please let us
around
know
all
if you
that.
have any questions, please give us a call.
Thanks so much.
So now, Mr. Mayor, will be your last public comment.
That's right. Lest I forget, all these people came here to speak. They're all watching on the interwebs, as far as I know. Have to show up to talk now that we're post-COVID. So, last chance for public comment. Seeing none, I will close public comment. And we need no response to it, so we're down to that last motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
2 seconds, so that basically says we're adjourned. All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.